This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion as we set up signing number 3 of the day. Excuse me, a little bit of a bubble or something in my throat there. Is just finishing lunch here, and the official details coming down on Drake Caggiula, who is once more a member of the Edmonton Oilers. And oh my goodness, you take me back to way back when Drake Caggiula was last an Edmonton Oiler and we were a dumpster fire. And oh my goodness, that is a whole trip of the mind. But friends, before we get too far into things, if you'd be so kind to consider hitting that subscribe button here on Dolynny TV, I would be greatly appreciative to have you along for the ride here on the channel. And official, the Edmonton Oilers have signed Drake Caggiula to a 2-year, two-way contract with an AAV of $775. So as we continued to talk all yesterday, all throughout the week, is the 775 contracts would be key for the Edmonton Oilers. And today, the first one that is a two-way deal, it would assume that Drake Caggiula will be there to battle at camp, but more or less take on a Seth Griffith type role for the Edmonton Oilers, in which he's sitting there battling for a roster spot that he's not going to get, but as well able to kind of move in and get it going. So actually, hold on, we've also got an update on Lane Peterson, who has signed a 2-year deal with the Oilers, but it was also a two-way deal. Nice. All right, that is interesting. Sorry, things coming in hot and furious now that the Oilers are tweeting out their moves for the day. And obviously, if you've been following along on Twitter today, you know Twitter is broken. So, yeah, that's kind of a situation we've been following all dang day here as the Edmonton Oilers and the rest of the NHL go along throughout the NHL free agent window. But apparently, according to the official statement from the Edmonton Oilers, a follow-up to my video earlier today, Lane Peterson is a two-way contract, not a one-way, as I previously stated. Things like that will happen today, and I'm sure, like I said, that's why I didn't want to get into the bonus details for a guy like Connor Brown. All right, let's bring up Drake Caggiula's stats, shall we? This is where, unfortunately, I have to look at my computer in this awkward angle, but we've started to get better with this whole thing, so give me a moment. Drake Caggiula started way back in 16-17 with the Oilers, 18 points in 60 games played. He was a regular member of that second-round team back then in the regular season. Followed it up in 17-18 with, 20 points in 67 games. And then got traded to the Chicago Blackhawks halfway through the year there. Right around that time, the Oilers were, yikes, imploding on the season. And scored 12 points with the Hawks and scored 11 with us that year. Played the next year with the Hawks, putting up 15 points in 40 games, so not a bad campaign there for him. About a career best average right there with, just looking about, other than the 12 points in 26 games with the Hawks, somewhere in that 38 points per game range. And then you go down the list here, and it's just progressively gotten worse for Caggiula, but that's why he's on a 2-year league minimum, $775 cap hit, and a two-way deal. As you look here for him, right, 26 or 0.26 points per game with Arizona in 2021, and then played 11 games with the Buffalo Sabres too, and then has been bouncing around in the East a little bit between Buffalo and Pittsburgh over the past 2 seasons. So that's where you find yourself with Drake Caggiula. There's really not much to add to this guy. We know what we're getting. Kind of has some speed. Don't know if injuries have slowed him down over the course of the past few years, but a guy that we know what we've got in Drake Caggiula, and we don't have to worry about it too much at all. So a guy that, will be on the Bakersfield Condors, in my opinion. I don't know where he adds any value to the Edmonton Oilers lineup, basically the way we build the lineup, plus the way that this lineup needs to operate to go into the regular season this year. So keep that in mind. A guy that, right, he's a member of the Oilers once again, but really not a big time member of the Edmonton Oilers by any means. And you look at it here, right? You go through the course of the past few years. He played with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, this past season pretty heavily. That's why only the 4 games with the Pittsburgh Penguins, 53 points in 65 games played. So I would assume that Drake Caggiula will once again be a member of the Oilers for maybe a game or two in case of injury. This is still according to Ken Holland's plan, where he outlined that, yeah, we're going to sign some guys who can play a couple of games in case of injury, right? We saw kind of the situation last year having James Hamblin in there, Brad Malone in there. Those guys fit because they were already signed. They were already at the league minimum kind of numbers that we needed to make the cap fit. But you know what? This year, Ken Holland opting to go with guys that have a little bit more NHL experience, have been around the NHL a little bit more regularly over the past few years, or have put up some really stellar numbers in the AHL over the past few seasons. So it's good to see the Oilers are trying to insulate themselves, right? Drake Caggiula, I see no reason why he couldn't play 20 games if a guy like Warren Foegele went down, and why he couldn't potentially benefit you, right? Same with Lane Peterson. But at the end of the day, it's going to be guys in your bottom 6 like Warren Foegele, like Ryan McLeod, like, of course, Matthias Janmark. Nick Bjugstad's hopefully back. We'll find out. But what do we got going here? So now to re-update the post, because it looks like the Oilers just used the same post for Drake Caggiula as they did Lane Peterson. Guess what? They have updated it, and it is now a 1-year deal, or 2-year contract with a one-way on the contract for Lane Peterson. So there you go. That again, updated again. Sorry, things coming in just as we go live and do that kind of stuff. But for Drake Caggiula, I think it's nice to see a guy return back home, right? A guy want to come back here after we kind of shipped him out for, I don't even want to talk about it, to the Chicago Blackhawks. But obviously, too, a guy that just needs to insulate the organization a little bit in the depth roles down in the minors a little bit. And obviously, it was stated today by Bob Stauffer that the Oilers are looking for a couple of scorers down in the AHL, try and help the rookies develop, take some load off on the offensive pressure, and let some guys step into that Bakersfield lineup this year, or take that next step in the Bakersfield lineup this year and allow them to have maybe some guys to play with, some guys to really go out there and do. Because, man, I love Brad Malone, but Brad Malone is also not the guy that is going to be that superstar kind of AHL caliber player that distributes the puck to allow a guy like Carter Savoy to score a bunch of goals and develop his shot more. It's more or less about giving them some options down there on the farm to kind of develop the talent more so how they see fit. And hey, that's no knock on Brad Malone, who has been an absolute warrior for this Edmonton Oilers team over the past several seasons. 5-6 years now, Brad Malone's been around doing his thing and helping us develop the next generation of Edmonton Oilers, and been doing a dang good job at it. So that's where we find ourselves, friends. A couple more players to head to Bakersfield, more than likely. Lane Peterson, though, interesting name to keep an eye on at camp to see what he features. But Drake Caggiula back as a member of the Edmonton Oilers. And just to give you the stats on Caggiula as we close out here, he's 5'10", 29 years old, 176 pounds, from Ontario. So kind of a guy that we won't mind seeing back in Oilers threads if we see him back in Oilers threads this upcoming season. Friends, I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. Thank you so much for being along for the ride. I am up on out of here.